Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. Today was a doozy. I want to try to touch on three topics pretty quickly in this video. The first one, I want to talk about the recent developments in the Mike Flynn case. The second one, I want to talk about how Bill Barr today put the lie to something Donald Trump said yesterday. And then three, I want to take on the great Hydroxychloroquine Reveal. First of all, the Mike Flynn case. A couple of things happened. The U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Tim Shea, is the person who signed that horrific, unjust motion to dismiss Mike Flynn's case. Now, Tim Shea is not a career prosecutor. He's a political appointee. Bill Barr is the one who named him as temporary U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. And Bill Barr and Tim Shea got together and decided that they would do a favor for the president's criminal associate, Mike Flynn, by trying to tank his case, trying to get rid of his case. No career prosecutor at my former office, the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office, would sign that unjust motion to dismiss, only Tim Shea. Well, now we learned today that Donald Trump is taking Tim Shea out of the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office and making him the acting head of the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration. I can only say that I hope Tim Shea does less damage to the credibility of the DEA and does less damage to the morale of the good people who work at the DEA than he did to the morale of the people at the DC U.S. Attorney's Office. The other interesting development in the Mike Flynn case today was that the outside attorney that Judge Emmett Sullivan appointed to represent the people, because we the people were going completely unrepresented in that case because Bill Barr and Tim Shea migrated over to the defense camp, to Mike Flynn's camp with his attorneys, and they're all in league together trying to dismiss Mike Flynn's case, so the people needed representation, which led Emmett Sullivan to appoint John Gleeson to come in and represent the people and argue why the motion to dismiss should not be granted. And remember, John Gleeson is a former federal prosecutor in New York. He prosecuted John Gotti. He is also a former judge in the federal district court in New York for more than 20 years, eminently qualified person to be taking on this heavy lift. So John Gleeson filed a very short page-and-a-half motion in the Flynn case, and there's something in it that caught my eye, and I want to read it to you. He said, among other things, that he is seeking, quote, additional factual development that I may need before finalizing my argument in opposition to the government's motion to dismiss Mike Flynn's case. He needs more factual information and evidence. I read that, and I will say that is kind of a delicious request. And here's why I say that. It may be, to get this additional factual information, he's going to have to ask Emmett Sullivan to issue subpoenas to the Department of Justice so he can get to the bottom of this horrific flip-flop. One day taking a guilty plea from Mike Flynn, and the next day trying to tank that very same guilty plea. So Judge Sullivan might have to issue subpoenas to the Department of Justice for records and documents and emails and cell phone traffic in order to figure out what really went on here, so that Mr. Gleeson will have a full factual record to help him develop his legal arguments in court. Because let me tell you real quickly on subpoenas, as a prosecutor, I got to issue subpoenas for people to appear before the grand jury or to appear in court, or I could subpoena cell phone records or business records or documents or photographs, anything I thought was relevant evidence that I needed either in furtherance of my investigation in the grand jury or in furtherance of a court hearing or a trial. But it's not my subpoena power. I exercise the subpoena power of the court. It is the court's subpoena power. So Judge Sullivan is the one who, if John Gleeson needs more factual information and evidence to be able to fully represent we the people in the Mike Flynn case, the way Judge Sullivan has asked him to do, then it may be that Judge Emmett Sullivan will have to start issuing subpoenas to the Department of Justice. Stay tuned. Second thing I want to talk about is how Bill Barr just exposed Donald Trump's lies. Yesterday, you may have seen Donald Trump in a press briefing.
President Obama of the biggest political crime in American history by far. Those were your words. What crime exactly are you accusing President Obama of committing, and do you believe the Justice Department should prosecute him?
Obamagate. It's been going on for a long time. It's been going on from before I even got elected, and it's a disgrace that it happened. And if you look at what's gone on, and if you look at now all of this information that's being released, and from what I understand, that's only the beginning. Some terrible things happened, and it should never be allowed to happen in our country again.
What is the crime exactly that you're accusing him of?
You know what the crime is. The crime is very obvious to everybody. All you have to do is read the newspapers, except yours.
Today, Bill Barr was asked in a press conference, are you going to be investigating alleged crimes by President Obama or Vice President Biden in connection with the initiation of the Russia investigation into election interference? And Bill Barr said, no. Well, that was Bill Barr putting the lie to Donald Trump's crime yesterday that Obama committed all sorts of crimes that will be investigated. You know, and rarely do I embrace something that Bill Barr said as being truthful and accurate and helpful. But he plainly exposed Trump's lie about Obama committing crimes and Vice President Biden committing crimes in connection with the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. Last thing I want to take on is the great hydroxychloroquine reveal that we got today, which was a real stunner. At the end of a long meeting, Donald Trump announced, kind of blurted out to everyone's surprise, I've been taking the drug for a couple of weeks. He claimed that he's been taking hydroxychloroquine for, I think he ultimately backtracked and said, well, maybe about a week and a half. And so reporters naturally followed up and said, well, who did the White House physician recommend that you should take that drug? And Donald Trump said, well, yeah, well, no, I kind of said that, you know, I want to take it. And the doctor kind of said, well, sure, you know, whatever you want. And so I started taking it, and, you know, it looked like Donald Trump was making it up as he went along. But he just told the country and the world he's been taking hydroxychloroquine for about a week and a half. And he again pulled out his tired line, what have you got to lose? Here's what we have to lose. There will now be many of Donald Trump's followers, after hearing him say he's taking hydroxychloroquine, they will move heaven and earth to get their hands on hydroxychloroquine and begin taking it. The question I have is that if you are the White House physician and you know that Donald Trump is not taking hydroxychloroquine, we don't know at this moment if he is or if he isn't. But if you're the White House physician and you know he isn't, don't you have an ethical duty to speak out and stop others from recklessly taking it? And the other thing is, if Donald Trump really had been taking it for the last week and a half, do you think he would have been able to keep his mouth shut about it in light of all of the criticism of how the drug really does pose a danger and really isn't all that effective? Don't you think he would have piped up over the last week and a half and said, I've been taking it and it's a miracle drug? Stay tuned, because there is more to come, I'm quite sure, on that front. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please stay coronavirus free. And I look forward to talking with you all again soon.